This week's location is a new landmark on the Northumberland skyline near the village of Lynemouth. It's an aluminium smelter, a surprising thing maybe to find sprouting out of the countryside on the edge of the Northumberland coalfield. In this programme we'll be trying to find out why it was located at this particular spot and the effect the new industry has had on the local area. This is just a small sample of the 120,000 tonnes of aluminium produced at this smelter in a year. In its present state, it doesn't much resemble the everyday objects that aluminium's made into, but I could be sitting on a future saucepan, parts of a plane's wing, bits of a motor car, or just a window frame, because aluminium's made into 1,001 different things, even parts of the television you're watching now. And it may well have started out here at Lynemouth. The heart of the smelter is the 4 pot rooms, each half a kilometre long with 80 furnaces, or pots, running down either side. In here, the 2 most important elements in the aluminium making process are brought together. The first of which is this white powder, alumina. It's made from a rock called bauxite, almost all of which is mined in the tropics. The alumina used here is shipped in from Suriname in South America, 6,000 kilometres away. Starting with the loading of alumina into the pots, the whole production process is highly automated. A handful of men look after a great deal of equipment. You can't see the second element in the pot room, but it's just as important as the alumina. It's electricity. Each of these pots consumes about the same amount as 600 electric fires. I'm passing 1 pot every 10 metres. I've got 500 metres to go. That's a huge amount of electricity. Inside the pots, the alumina powder is dissolved with other chemicals. The electric current, about 10,000 times greater than the supply we get at home, turns the mixture red hot. It's during this process that molten aluminium is formed. When it's ready, the aluminium is collected in a crucible, rather like an overgrown saucepan hooked onto a crane that runs along the length of the pot room. The liquid metal is siphoned out of the bottom of the pot, like sucking a drink through a straw. A pot produces a ton of metal a day from 2 tons of alumina, which in turn were made from 4 tons of bauxite. So 4 tons of rock mined in the tropics end up as 1 ton of aluminium in Lynemouth. After siphoning off the metal from a number of pots, the crucible's full. 5 tons of red-hot liquid aluminium. The last job in the pot room is to skim off the waste matter. The aluminium's now ready for the casting plant next door, where it'll be mixed with other metals and moulded into various shapes and sizes. There are 2 things about that process that can help explain why the smelter was located here. The first is the need to be as close as possible to the supplies of alumina coming from abroad. Well, we're just a kilometre from the coast, and over there is the rail link to the port of Blyth, where the alumina ships unload. The alumina quay has been built on a site that used to handle the export of coal from the Northumberland coalfield. But now the most important commodity coming through the port is the white powder on its way to the Lynemouth smelter. The second thing about the process is to be as close as possible to that huge supply of electricity. Well, just follow the wires. Follow them right through for about 500 metres. And there it is, the smelter's very own power station, big enough to keep a city the size of Sheffield supplied with electricity. The power station runs on coal. And to complete the picture, the place that comes from, Lynemouth Colliery, is only 700 metres away. The colliery's winding towers stand above one of the most productive coal mines in the northeast of England. Lynemouth's coal extends 5 kilometres out from the coastline, deep under the North Sea. The coal seams here are thick enough for machines to be used on nearly all the mining operations. Linked underground with another mine a short distance away, Lynemouth turns out 2.5 million tonnes of coal a year. 5 kilometres from the coalface, the rock arrives on the surface at the colliery's coal plant.
What's this reaction? Dummy line? Short burst from every 100 yards of 10 minutes in the Westfield. The 500 ton buffer.
The plant sorts the coal according to size and quality. It may all look the same, but there's quite a difference between the type of coal needed in, say, a steelworks and that used in a domestic fire. The colliery's biggest customer is the smelter's power station. 60% of the output is sent there in a specially blended mixture that looks like black gravel.
Half an hour ago, this coal was still under the sea, and in another 5 minutes, it'll be fed into the smelter's power station at the other end of this 700-metre conveyor. Without this coal, the power station wouldn't be here. Without the power station, the smelter wouldn't be here. And without the smelter, the coal mine wouldn't be such a prosperous place. To some extent, that's what location's all about.
But only to some extent. True enough, being near the coast and near to a cheap source of electricity goes a long way towards explaining the smelter's location. They're what might be called the visible reasons why the place is here. But they're not the whole story. As usual, behind the scenes, there are invisible reasons, especially one which has to do with this map. The darker bits are what are called development areas. These are the areas of the country where firms can get special grants from the government to set up new factories. It's a way of encouraging firms to expand in places where the need for new jobs is greatest. The Lynemouth smelter cost £74 million. By going to a development area, it got a quarter of this in a government grant. So if you're trying to explain the smelter's location, this reason is just as important as being near the coast and next to cheap electricity. But why is this part of Northumberland classified as a development area where new jobs are needed? It's coal mining country. In the past, the area's livelihood depended heavily on this one single industry. Many of the towns in the region were built around coal mines. It's quite common to find places where the pit employs well over half the men and where free coal is still delivered to miners' houses. There are also reminders that the industry was once more widespread than it is now. The area is dotted with old mining settlements, some no more than a street or two of terraced houses, overlooked by the heaps of waste rock dug out of the mine. For every pit that's still working, there are several that have closed down. The houses are still there, but the colliery at the end of the street has disappeared. It's no surprise then that nearly half the people at the smelter used to work in the coal industry. Considering the size of the place, the smelter doesn't employ that many people, just over 1,000 all told. As usual, the more modern an industry, the more mechanised it is. But compared with the routine sort of job available in most of the factories attracted to the development areas, the work here appeals to somebody from the mining industry. It's rough, tough, with plenty of action. The ex-miners with jobs at the smelter travel daily to and from their homes in the nearby coal towns. Brian Stevenson is a pot room supervisor. He and his workmate John Wardlaw worked down the mines before getting jobs at the smelter.
Norfolk. I was there not last year, the year before. It's quite nice here.
They have fancy getting a boat, you know, going on the boards.
On the boards. I've always fancied that holiday, but Elizabeth's not keen on the water.
She not?
No. Makes a break, man.
Welcome break.
They both live in a part of the coalfield where the mines were small and the coal seems nowhere near as thick as those at the big Lynemouth pit next to the smelter.
Sure. Again? Shucks. Ta-ra. Ta-ra. Ta-ra.
We asked Brian what it was like working at one of the older pits in the Northumberland coalfield.
Oh, you dreaded it, man, at times. You know, you really dreaded it. Waking up in the morning. You didn't want to go. I never wanted to go to work. Not really. Not at small pits.
What were the conditions like down the old mine?
We cramped up for a start on your knees. 2'3" high.
On your knees?
On your knees, 2 threads. Sometimes on your side, it was as bad as that at times. With a pick and with a shovel, you know, old-fashioned type. When you first went in, till you got used to it, you know, after a week or two, you're very uncomfortable, and you ached all over, yeah.
And got dirty?
Very dirty, yeah, and very wet at times.
Why did you do it?
Because I didn't do anything else. I left school, and that was the only job to go to, really, you know. And money. You know, the money wasn't bad at the time.
All day, doubled up
Yeah.
at the coalface?
Yeah. But I mean, if you're born in that sort of thing, you don't take it so badly, really, you know. If you've seen nothing else, I hadn't seen anything else. I started as a boy and slowly worked the coalface. I think I was there 18 years, I would say, and I had plenty, like, you know. Conditions at the time was getting worse. I used to dread going to the mine, if you want the truth, you know. And now I can go to work and I've got the height and you feel more content and I feel more safer, a lot more safer than I did at the old pits, like, much more.
I've got the height and I feel much safer. The same could be said for the working conditions at the Lynemouth pit opposite the smelter. The high seams allow miners to work standing up, and there's room for machines to do the work. A job at this pit is not easy to come by. There's a long waiting list because of spacious working conditions and good prospects. Supplying coal to the smelter alone will ensure jobs for 1,000 miners for the next 25 years. This was another reason for building the smelter at Lynemouth. So the answer to the question, why was the smelter built just here, contains a number of reasons. There are the more obvious ones, like being near a supply of fuel which could satisfy its enormous appetite for electricity. Being near the coast and in reach of a harbour for bringing in raw materials from abroad. Then the less obvious ones, like a government grant to set up in a development area. And the jobs that the smelter would create in a region where the older forms of employment are dying out.